Hi, and welcome back. Today we're in the top 64 countdown, as you've been listening to for the last few weeks, and we're at, where are we at? 30 through 26, so certainly top half. These albums are now going to get pretty serious in terms of my choices, and I guess you could say, yeah, do you want this album on? Yeah, I always want this album on. It's one of my top 30. So I'm going to go back to and extend that theory I put to you earlier about when you're 14, 15, 16, this is when your musical tastes emerge and stand. In the you might not remember this, but in the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of record labels used to put samplers out, and this was not like now 1992 or now 1984 or whatever it is, where they would populate them with singles and well-known songs. These were examples of stuff on their record label. So you could get 20. You could get a double album. You get a single album. You could get 20 tracks. Some you might have heard of. Some you've never heard of. So let me just tell you a few of these. These are all from the late 60s, early 70s. This is from 1970. This is the Island record label. So you got bands like Spooky Tooth, Mott the Hoople, Free, Jethro Tull, Cat Stevens, Fairport, etc. This one I'm holding up now is called Spirit of Rock. That's from the Probe record label. And again, Steely Dan's on there. Four Tops, B.B. King, Ray Charles, Joe Walsh. So anybody who was on that record label at the time. This is another one from Probe. Slightly spooky cover. We've got James Gang, Steppenwolf, B.B. King again, Bush, whoever they are. Three Dog Night, so some more American version. This is the Atlantic one, so you can see on the front you got Yes, Clapton, AMC5, Allman Brothers, Zeppelin even as well. I wonder what the Zeppelin track is. Whole and Love. Okay, probably 1970, something like that. This is Picnic. I think this is about 1968. This from the Harvest, EMI Harvest label. So no doubt there's a rare. I think there is a rare Pink Floyd track on there that most people haven't heard before. Parker James Harvest, Kevin Ayers, Syd Barrett on his own, Edgar Broughton, that sort of stuff on there. Find a place for those. Here's one from the Polydor label, looks like. John Mayall, Eric Clapton, Stone the Crows, Derek and Dominoes, Ginger Baker. And lastly, Fill Your Head with Rock. You see this a lot from the CBS label. So you got the Byrds, Argent, Chicago, Santana, Janis Joplin, Mike Bloomfield, etc. So a lot of those were on those labels. And they typically be cheaper than the average album. And by the way, in 1970 we changed money from old to new, and we were dealing in new pence and all the rest of it. And this album cost £1.99, so just under £2. We know this money now. At the time, I can't remember how much albums were. I figure they were about £6.49 or £8.29 or something ridiculous like that. But this was one of the first albums I ever got, and this has stuck with me. You can tell by the look of the label until today. And the bands on this album, I'll just give you a few examples here. So, Incredible String Band, Mott the Hoople, Mountain, Traffic, Mick Abrams, ELP, Cat Stevens, Jethro Tull, Free, Nick Drake, Quintessence, Fairport Head, Hands and Feet. It's no exaggeration to say that this shaped my musical decision making from that point on, and bands have to do a lot wrong to get off from my favourites list. So this was like a Now 84, if you like, but a deeper dive into the tracks. There's actually a track on here called Dive Deep by Quintessence. If you ever got 10 minutes one afternoon, put that on. It's a fantastic track. But my favourite, I'm going to choose. I actually, a lot of these bands that you're going to see in the next few weeks, they are in the 30 through to 1 countdown. The ones I just mentioned. One that isn't is Mountain, and that's why I'm going to choose Don't Look Around by Mountain. 3-piece band. Felix Pappalardi on bass, Leslie West on guitar. Really, that's all you need to know about them. An amazing sound, and big in the States in the late 60s, early 70s. really make a good noise, probably best live than studio album. So yeah, there's $1.99 well spent. One of my favourite ever albums, and I think it's the only compilation on the list. There you go. So, second choice, I'm going to shock a number of people like I shocked them last week in terms of, there must be a lot of Beatles albums on. There wasn't, it was just Revolver. And you might think, yeah, especially that t-shirt he's wearing, there's going to be a bunch of Stones albums in the top 10. There aren't. This is the only Stones album that we're going to see. It's my American pressing of Let It Bleed, which I think is a fantastic album. The Stones to me were the sort of alter Beatles. Back in the 60s, you may have been different, but you either like the Beatles or you like the Stones. And my mother liked the Beatles, my father tolerated the Beatles, and therefore the Beatles were the choice, and the Stones were seen as the bad boys. My half sister was into the Stones, and she was sort of a bit slightly wild, seen as slightly wild relatives. So these were singles band, and like the Beatles, a lot of their stuff is derived from blues, American black blues, especially the Stones. And so the first few albums were either covers or their derivatives of black blues numbers. And they made no bones about that, and they didn't to try and hide the fact. I think in the 60s they then they then started to almost copy the Beatles, and there's an album called By Her Satanic Majesty's Request. It's a spoof of what used to be written on your passport, which is their sort of foray into psychedelia and conceptual album like Sgt. Pepper came out about the same time as Sgt. Pepper, maybe just after. And then they sort of hit their stride with a string of things like Sticky Fingers, which I haven't got, as I said before, Exile on Main Street, double album, and then things like Let It Bleed. There's another album, it's a live album, which I really like, called Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, which I always found this title was amazing. It's basically a live concert, and that's pretty good as well, and I think that's where the Stones excel in getting their stage act, and I've since gone back to like the Stones more and more, and especially as they're still hitting the boards at 70 odd years old. And I really like Keith Richards now. I never used to think much of the guy, but I think it's his honesty and his knowledge of how to play the instrument and make things sound intense. So I would choose this. I would choose Midnight Rambler as my standout track. There's Gimme Shelter on here, Monkey Man, You Can't Always Get What You Want, Let It Bleed. So some real standout stuff on there, but yeah, that'd be the one for me. So the only one in my top 64 of the Stones, but a very strong choice. Okay, now we're going to 71 again. What a year 71 was. I'd say maybe I'm going to look at whether 71's like the strongest claim for the best albums of the year, of the sort of century, or whether it's going to be 1970, but around about that time. Again, I'd be 15 years old, and this is, to me, a masterpiece. I absolutely adored Mark Bolan. I really didn't care much about the rest of the band. It was a one-man band anyway. If you've seen any more stuff about Mark Bolan or Mark Bolan, however you want to say it, he seems to me now like a bit of a sort of megalomaniac, and he was wanting to be the band. He was never going to fail at any cost, except the stuff went to his head about 4 albums in, and to me he just fell off the rails and started doing self-opinionated nonsense, but that's my opinion, a bit like his. This, however, came out at just the right time. I had this guy painted on my satchel at school. I had posters all over the room of this guy. Apart from him being 5'4" and me being 6 foot, then I looked like him because we both had this corkscrew hair and a penchant for colourful clothing. But yeah, this album, fabulously produced, by the way. Tony Visconti did a fantastic job of really bringing out the thud and the power in this in his guitar work. Gibson Les Paul, which first turned me on to, that's a proper guitar, Gibson Les Paul. For those who want to argue about guitars, I've got a Strat and I've got a Les Paul, but to me, Les Paul is the guitar. And as we said, Leslie West in Mountain also wielded one of those. This has got a couple of real well-known tracks. Get It On, and it's got Jeepster on there. But my favourite track, my standout track, is called Mambo Son. Opens the first side, so I always think there's a lot of choice by the band as to what's our strongest track, what's going to open this album. Side 1, track 1. So Mambo Son, ever get a chance, really knock it up. Bass is already terrific on it for the 1970s. And I would say this is my most played, back-to-back played album. So you play it, get to the end, put it on again. Probably because I was 15, 16-year-old at the time when it came out. Great album, still stands there today. Now, modern day, I say modern day, 1996, equivalents of people who are just pushing the boundaries and trying new stuff and incorporating old and new, is, I would say, this guy, Beck. Put that a little bit higher. So this is Beck's, I don't know, what, third, fourth album. It was a bit underground before that, but in 95, I think it was, brought out Loser, and that was picked up on by the MTVs of the day, and really given a lot of serious airplay. So Loser, or may have been off the album Mellow Gold, can't remember, sort of put him on the map. And at this point, he then had the confidence, I guess, to experiment in ways he hadn't before. So, ask about Beck if you've not heard of him. Half folk, half funk, half hip-hop. I know that's three halves, but, and you just don't know what you're going to get next. The Rolling Stone magazine described this as his right brain, let's get this word right brain run amok. Innovative, different, not always good in my opinion, but about 5 of his albums are really good standout albums. Somebody said, and again, if you've not seen this film, it doesn't make any sense. Why is it that all Beck's albums, or certainly around this time, sound like they should be on Napoleon Dynamite? It's a film, a slightly independent film, which is really quirky and really different, and I think a lot of tracks that do on this. You may have heard of a number of these tracks on here: Devil's Haircut, Novocaine, City Neck, Ready Made, High Five. But my standout track, and I think it's a fantastic track, a lot of hip hop on there, which is not my choice, as you probably know by now, but two turntables and a microphone is this thing that keeps getting shouted out, and I've got 2 or 3 turntables, I've got a microphone right here, so I'm not saying it's me, but I really like the shout out. If you just type that into Google, you get that refrain, you'll be singing it all afternoon. So, highly recommended. Beck, Odelay, and one album cover as well. You can't see that anywhere, maybe you can. Fantastic. Last one. I'm going back to 1970 again, and you can see where my love is for the era of albums. And when I was just reading through what's left, there's only 25 left after this one. I keep opening my sort of chat with, there's not much you can say about this album. Because to me, there isn't. This top 25, there's not much more you can add, apart from why I particularly like it. There's no good going through and saying, is this a good album, is it not? These are all belters from this point in. And so I'm going to say about this, not much more you can say about this album. 1970, about their third album, they'd been playing around with lots of sort of orchestra albums and Book of Talisman and that sort of thing. They'd had a lineup prior to this with a different bass player, but this, I think they struck gold with this and went on to make 2 or 3 even better albums if that exists. There's a debate amongst Deep Purple fans, amongst rock fans in general, about what's the best Deep Purple lineup, because there are about 8 or 9 different lineups through the years, and they're still going now, by the way. They just released a new album which is pretty good as well. This is the definitive lineup. It's called Mark II. So you got Ian Gillan on vocals, Richie Blackmore, John Lord, Ian Payson and Glover, and together I think started classic rock. There've been a few other artists that could claim that, but I think these boys really took it to a new place. they were together 4 years. They produced 4 albums, I think, from memory. And yeah, I went to see Deep Purple a lot in concert. So that with Rory Gallagher, 2 of the bands that came a lot to Sheffield City Hall, and I would get in during the afternoon with my friends and stay there until the evening. So we didn't often pay unless we really, really wanted to make sure we were going to get in the evening. And I used to pay for Deep Purple because they were something different. And I remember also getting John Lord's beer bottle, which stood in my bedroom for many, many years. No beer in it, I'm afraid, but there you go. Maybe why I ended up working for a brewery. So that's Deep Purple in rock. My standout track was going to be Speed King. And I wrote Speed King down on my notes, and then 2 days ago listened to this album again, put on Speed King, and then I thought, let's hear Child in Time. And when Child in Time came on, I got out the pencil and scratched out Speed King and wrote Child in Time. It should have been my choice all along. It's an amazing track. There's highs and lows, and just Blackmore showing off, and the rest of the band going with him. So yeah, and that's where a lot of Deep Purple ended up, Mark II anyway. Okay, so 1970, classic album to end with. So hopefully you can join me next time. By the way, put your comments in the bottom. We've had a few comments about what people like and what they don't. Apart from that, happy days. See you later.